What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here. This is going to be the next album review into the Black Sabbath discography, and it has been a few days since that I had reviewed 7 Star, but I am glad to review the next Black Sabbath album, the 13th studio album, and the beginning of a brand new era for the band, and this is going to be the review on The Eternal Idol. The Eternal Idol was released in 1987, and this is the follow-up to the very hard rock-driven, blues-orienting album with a previous lineup of Glenn Hughes on vocals called 7 Star. 7 Star was a record that was on a very, very small, limited timeline, and with the lineup consisting on a different sound than what Iommi had been doing for the other Black Sabbath albums. So after the release of 7 Star, they went on tour, obviously, but after the first few shows, Glenn had been drinking heavily, difficult to cope with for Iommi, and it got to a point that Hughes had been fighting with the production manager that he had injuries inside of his face, and he went to the hospital for it. During this time on the tours, auditioning a singer without Hughes knowing. So he was on a secretive turn that Iommi decided to do. And it was with a singer by the name of Ray Gillen. So when Hughes was out from the tours, Gillen stepped in with the rest of the band's small period for Black Sabbath with Ray Gillen. And Iommi had been writing material that would become this album, but Ray Gillen sadly had been suffering with a disease of AIDS, which means that his time with the band was very, very limited. So Gillen was eventually out because of those reasons, and they replaced Gillen with, in my eyes, one of the most underappreciated and highly gifted metal vocalists of all time, Tony Martin. Out of all of the vocalists in Black Sabbath, I think Tony Iommi's choice of having Tony Martin is a very, very good choice. Deserves a lot of credit and chances. Out of all of the vocalists in Black Sabbath, I think Tony Martin is the very, very underrated one. This is the last Black Sabbath album as well to be released in the Vertigo label and through Warner Brothers. This album is a record that I will say has been one of my favorites. I know I just said it right now before the very end, but The Eternal Idol, I remember listening to it when I was getting into any of the periods in Black Sabbath, that The Eternal Idol was a record that I was thoroughly enjoying so much. It is 42 minutes in length and it has 9 tracks. So the music on this album, in a return to basics kind of tradition in the signature sound that Black Sabbath were beloved for than the previous albums of Born Again with Ian Gillan and 7 Star with Glenn Hughes. The other members for this album still consist of Eric Singer on the drums, who would later on join Kiss, and their bass player from 7 Star still continues to work with the guys. The album cover was intended to feature a picture of an Auguste Rodin sculpture from 1889, also called The Eternal Idol. However, the album cover actually features 2 naked models covered in paint and positioned to resemble the piece of art because permission to photograph the actual sculpture could not be secured. The paint had toxic effects, and the models had to go straight to hospital at the end of the photo shoot. The first track, The Shining, is very, very good. Melodic guitar riff from the beginning, and then it just goes into something really big. And The Shining is one of the best tracks on this album immediately. A perfect start to an album from the start to the end. And this is one of the very, very catchy tracks that gets better. It just has so much to dive into. The Shining has been one of my favourites. Another one that I really liked is the second track, Ancient Warrior. It's just as perfect as The Shining in a way, and I find that Ancient Warrior was one of the tracks that has that really, really effective tone with Martin's range on his vocals and the sound of this track. It's another brilliant track. There are some songs on here that have that hard, rocky kind of energy to it, especially on Hard Life to Love, the next track, and of course with the song on Born to Lose. A lot of really good chemistry on this record. The rest of the band have worked exceptionally well. So there are some of these moments that Martin has some of the best vocal deliveries I've ever listened to since Ronnie James Dio, believe it or not, in my opinion at least, and with Glenn Hughes as well. Nightmare reminds me on like a little bit of a Ronnie James Dio, Heaven and Hell kind of sound. The laughter that you hear on the track was actually Gillan's laughter. Gillan did vocals on this whole album before Martin came into the band. Pretty much like an underrated gem. It's a very, very good song. It has a lot of melody. Scarlet Pimpernel is the only instrumental that we've got for this record. It's just 2 minutes, and I think Scarlet Pimpernel reminds me on a bit of a Sabotage kind of way. Something very, very simple, but I really like how it sounds. Jangly, acoustic guitar playing style. Not as beloved as the other ones like Orchid to Rat Salad, and of course with some from Volume 4 like What a Sunrise, for example. Lost Forever. This track is some of the fastest, if not the fastest song on this record. Really great. It has such a perfect, consistent aggression. And speaking of some aggression, the only Doom relating sound on this album is the last track, The Eternal Idol. And it is the only track that it's just very slow, but it's got a dark atmosphere to it. Keyboard's tone makes it haunting. I think that this track, again, has some of Martin's most top-notch vocal performances. Very good flow and the harmonies. The Eternal Idol as an album is one of the Black Sabbath albums that I would recommend immensely. It is a brilliant, brilliant album to continue Black Sabbath in this new period, and we will hear the next album, Headless Cross, which I will get to really soon. A fantastic start to the Tony Martin period. And let me know what you think of The Eternal Idol in the comments below. I'm going to give The Eternal Idol by Black Sabbath a 9 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.